Standard 9th, Political Science, Chapter number 4, the United Nations. The short form will be UN. Proceeding with the objectives of the United Nations, all member countries are bound by duty to respect the diplomatic privileges of sovereign nations, not to attack other countries, and abide by international law and treaties. Now, it is compulsory for every nation who is a member that they respect diplomatic privileges. Diplomatic privileges means when the officials of a particular country are visiting another country, those officials cannot be put to court or cannot be arrested straight away, even if they have made any mistake intentionally or unintentionally. The other nation has to be informed that this is what has gone wrong, and they enjoy immunity over this diplomatic relationships. The other country has to handle the situation in a diplomatic manner. No two countries are allowed to attack each other for whatever reason. The first step is to talk with each other, find out amicable terms to diffuse the situation. These are the international laws and treaties with which every nation has to abide. The United Nations is an organization created by the coming together of sovereign nations. Every country that is independent is a member of the United Nations. Naturally, it is based on certain principles and rules. There have to be certain terms and conditions. Now, we will be going ahead with the principles on which the United Nations was formed. All member nations will have the same status. Every member nation has to respect the other without discrimination over which country is rich, which is poor, which is more developed, which is less developed. None of these discriminations have to be brought forth. There is no discrimination among nations based on geographical size, economic or military power. All member nations of the United Nations should respect the freedom and geographical unity of other member nations. Also, all member nations should solve their international disputes and mutual differences by peaceful means. No weapons, no attacking the other country. Talk with each other and find peaceful solutions. This is what is applicable to all member nations of the United Nations. Now, please mark this paragraph, Principles of the United Nations. It will be asked to you as a short note. 2 marks question means you need to write 4 points. You need to divide these 3 points into 4 and mention them in your answer sheet. Now, we move ahead with the structure of the United Nations. How the United Nations is made. The United Nations Charter describes the structure and functioning of this organization. The United Nations has 6 main organs. Now, the main body of the United Nations is divided into 6 parts: General Assembly, Security Council, Economic and Social Council, International Court of Justice, Trusteeship Council, and Secretariat. Now, this question may not be asked, will not be asked in your exam. This information is, don't need to know it, but it is good to know. So these 6 are the main organs of the structure of the United Nations. Apart from these 6 major organs, there are also many affiliated organizations of the United Nations that help it in its functions. They are called specialized agencies. Working in specific areas, they help different nations in those areas. See, United Nations is a very big body. Every little work of the United Nations cannot be done by one organ or one agency. That is why the whole structure, the whole body of the United Nations is divided into small parts to take care of different areas. The following are some of these important agencies: International Labour Organization, ILO, which concentrates on the rights of the workers working in different countries. Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. It keeps an eye on the food standards and the agricultural produce of various countries. World Health Organization, WHO. This is very famous agency of the United Nations. We know that whenever there is a major health issue which is spread throughout the world or which is spreading from one particular country, we look up to this particular organization for updates. We follow the guidelines of WHO, World Bank, WB. When we need a loan, we go to our local bank. When our local bank needs a loan, it goes to RBI. When RBI needs money, it goes to the Indian government. But when the Indian government needs money, from where does it take the loan? It takes the loan from World Bank. World Bank is a structure that was made to offer loans or financial assistance on interest to countries which need money for temporary periods. Of course, it has to be returned. It is not free money which is available. International Monetary Fund, IMF, it usually keeps an eye on the share markets. United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF. UNICEF is, again, we can read about UNICEF every now and then in the newspapers or in the local areas. They concentrate on the children of the underprivileged families. United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. This is another organization which keeps an eye on the educational part, the scientific advancements and the cultural reach. Starting with General Assembly. Now, General Assembly, please understand, we are starting with the 6 organs of the United Nations. The first one is General Assembly. All the member countries are members of the General Assembly. Period. Every nation which is a member of the United Nations is also a member of the General Assembly. The position and status of all the countries, whether they are rich or poor, big or small, advanced, developed or underdeveloped, is the same. Every year, the General Assembly meets in its session from September to December. During this session, the General Assembly discusses important issues like environment, disarmament, etc. Environment, we know pollution and global warming are the major factors. Disarmament means there are countries which are progressing towards developing nuclear weapons. We all know nuclear weapons are a big threat to world peace. Any nation having nuclear energy or nuclear bombs will try to wield its power on smaller countries which do not have the nuclear bombs. The decisions in the General Assembly are taken by majority, simple majority. If there are 100 nations, if 51 nations vote for something, that particular vote goes towards the majority vote. These decisions are in the form of resolutions. Resolutions means solutions, the answer to any particular problem. Those resolutions are passed in the House and then they are accepted by every member nation. Thus, the General Assembly only passes resolutions. It does not make laws. There is a difference between resolution and law. Resolution is finding a solution. But whether that solution is accepted by all and implemented by all and converted into a law, that is the second step. That second step does not fall under the powers of the General Assembly. But the significance of the General Assembly lies in being a platform for representatives of member nations to come together and discuss and make policy decisions on issues of global importance. General Assembly acts as a platform where every member nation, whether big or small, can go and present their views, their outlooks towards problems that are occurring in the world. So this is a description of the General Assembly. Now going ahead with the functions of the General Assembly. What are its functions? To elect the non-permanent members of the Security Council. Security Council is the next step. Members of the General Assembly, some of them will be made non-permanent members of the Security Council. Which nations will be made? That election is done by General Assembly. To choose the United Nations Secretary General and the judges of the International Court of Justice in consultation with the Security Council. The United Nations Secretary General, the main head, is chosen by General Assembly. And judges of the International Court of Justice. Now again, if we have any dispute with our neighbor, we go and file a police complaint. If there is a serious issue, we file a court case. The court cases are done in the lower courts, then the upper courts, then the high court, the Supreme Court. But when some country does something wrong to another country, the case does not go to any country's Supreme Court. It goes to the International Court of Justice, which decides whether any wrongdoing was there on any country's part. Third point is to pass the annual budget of the United Nations. How much money should be spent? From where will the money come? And where will the money be spent? All this is a part of the annual budget of the United Nations. These three are the functions of the General Assembly. In the next class, we will be going ahead with the Security Council. Till that time, please take care. Whatever we have done till now, if you have any questions, doubts or issues, you can write it in the comments below, or you can get in touch with me on WhatsApp. Till that time, bye-bye.